The vast chamber of the Tejo High Council fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. 60 council members, their blue-tinted skin glowing under the soft lights, watched as the population charts appeared. The downward curve was unmistakable. Director Garam stood beside the display, her tall frame rigid with tension, as she waited for the council to absorb the information. "As you can see," she finally said, "our situation has worsened. The genetic degradation is accelerating in each new generation. Our scientists project total species extinction within 30 years. The council chamber remained silent. For a species that had explored the stars for 50,000 years, the concept of their own ending was almost impossible to comprehend. Chief Scientist Duri stepped forward. His eyes, larger than those of the younger Tejo, reflected his 800 years of life. "We have tried every solution within our technological capabilities. The simple truth is that our genetic structure lacks the necessary adaptability to overcome this cascade failure." Councillor Tamin rose from his seat, his ceremonial robes shimmering with embedded technology. "Surely there must be something we haven't considered. What about the genetic libraries from the Cygnus sector?" "Tested and failed," Duri replied flatly. "The degradation continues regardless of outside genetic material. Our fundamental DNA repair mechanisms are failing." The council members began to murmur among themselves. Many had lived for centuries and had never faced a problem their advanced technology couldn't solve. This helplessness was new and frightening. From the back of the chamber, Elder Hana slowly stood. At over 1,000 years old, she was one of the oldest living Taejo. The council fell silent out of respect. "There is one option we haven't properly explored," she said, her voice surprisingly strong despite her age. "The species from the third planet of the Yellow Star. The ones who call themselves humans," Tamin laughed sharply. "The primitives? They've barely left their own solar system. Their civilization is less than 10,000 years old." "True," Elder Hana acknowledged, "but our observation satellites have documented something remarkable about them. Their genetic diversity is unlike anything we've seen in the known galaxy." She gestured, and the holographic display changed to show data on human DNA. "They have survived countless near-extinction events. Plagues, radiation, climate shifts, wars with weapons we can hardly imagine. Their DNA repairs and adapts in ways ours cannot." Director Garam studied the data with growing interest. "Elder Hana is correct. These humans have an unusual genetic resilience. They change and adapt at rates that defy our understanding." "Are you suggesting we ask these humans for help?" Tamin's voice dripped with disdain. "Her species that still fights wars over resources and beliefs. I'm suggesting," Hana replied calmly, "that their very chaos may hold our salvation. The Taejo have been stable and unchanging for too long. Perhaps that is why we now face extinction." "Hi." Elder June, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. "What exactly do you propose, Elder Hana?" "A diplomatic mission to Earth. We reveal ourselves and ask for their assistance. Their scientific understanding is primitive compared to ours, but they may see solutions we cannot precisely because they think differently." The council chamber erupted in debate. Many were horrified at the idea of revealing themselves to a young, unpredictable species. Others saw no alternative. In a quiet corner, young scientist Miru watched the proceedings with growing anxiety. At only 90 years old, he was among the youngest Taejo present. Unlike the elders, he didn't have centuries of life behind him. He had a future to lose. "I have studied the humans extensively," Miru said, stepping forward nervously. The council turned to look at him, surprised by the interruption from such a junior member. "They are chaotic, yes. Unpredictable, certainly. But they possess something we have lost. They fight against all odds. Where we see inevitable outcomes, they see possibilities." High Elder June nodded slowly. "What would this mission require?" Director Garam quickly accessed the data. "A small ship could reach Earth in approximately 60 days. We have enough translation data to communicate effectively. And if they refuse to help, or worse, if they respond with violence," Tamin demanded, "then we are no worse off than we are now," Hana said simply. "We face extinction either way." The council voted. The decision was made. A ship would be prepared immediately. 2 weeks later, Miru found himself aboard the diplomatic vessel Endless Light as it prepared to leave orbit. He had been selected as part of the scientific team, along with Elder Hana and Chief Scientist Dury. As the ship accelerated toward the distant yellow star, Miru looked back at his homeworld, wondering if he would ever see it again. "Do you really believe these humans can save us?" he asked Elder Hana as they watched the planet shrink behind. "Them. I believe they might see something we have missed," she replied. "Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from unexpected places." The ship entered faster-than-light travel, carrying with it the last hope of the Tejo people. Remember that when you're asked to provide additional parts of a creative story, you should use proper citation practices, if any of your response includes content from web searches. In this case, the story seems to be original creative content, so no citation tags are needed. Just make sure your response adheres to the user's request. A Part 2 continuation of the story in 800 words, written in third person with simple English and no headings. The Tejo ship, Endless Light, dropped. Out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, young scientist Miru stared at the view screen with wide eyes. The third planet, covered in blue oceans and swirling white clouds, looked small and fragile against the blackness of space. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Elder Hana nodded. "And filled with more life forms than any planet we've studied. The humans have somehow managed not to destroy their world despite their chaotic nature." As the ship moved closer to Earth, alarm signals suddenly blared through the command center. Chief Scientist Dury rushed to the control panel. "We have a problem," he announced. "The main engine's radiation shield is failing. We need to establish contact with the humans immediately, before radiation leaks into other ship systems." Director Garam looked concerned. "Can we repair it?" "Not without materials from our homeworld," Dury replied. "We must seek help from the humans or abandon the mission." The decision was made. The Tejo ship would approach Earth openly, broadcasting peaceful intentions on all frequencies. As they entered orbit, the response was immediate. Dozens of small military spacecraft surrounded them, while radio signals flooded their communication systems. "They're afraid," Miru observed, watching the human ships maintain defensive positions. "As they should be," replied Director Garam. "Unknown visitors from space rarely bring good news." The Tejo sent their message in all human languages. "We come in peace seeking assistance. Our species faces extinction. We believe humans may hold the key to our survival." For 3 days, the Tejo waited in orbit while Earth's nations argued about how to respond. During this time, the ship's radiation leak worsened. Finally, a single message arrived from something called the United Nations Security Council. "We will help you. Land your vessel at these coordinates." The landing site was a remote desert in the southwestern United States. As the Tejo ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Miru felt a strange mix of hope and fear. Would these humans really help them, or was this a trap? 6 hours later, Miru stood beside Elder Hana as the ship's doors opened onto Earth for the first time. The dry air smelled strange. The gravity felt slightly stronger than home. A group of humans waited at a safe distance, some in military uniforms, others in white lab coats. One woman stepped forward from the human group. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and wore simple clothes compared to the others. "I'm Dr. Mina Park," she said, her voice being translated by the Tejo devices. "I've been appointed as the scientific liaison for this first contact." Director Garam stepped forward. "I am Director Garam of the Tejo High Council. We thank you for allowing us to land." The first meetings were tense and filled with misunderstandings. The humans asked endless questions about Tejo technology and biology. The Tejo struggled to explain their genetic problem in terms the humans could understand. Dr. Park worked day and night to understand the Tejo genetic structure. On the third day, she requested a private meeting with the Tejo leadership. "Your species is very different from ours," she explained, showing them her findings on a screen. "But the problem you're facing resembles several human genetic disorders. The difference is that humans have developed ways to adapt to genetic challenges." "How?" asked Dury, leaning forward with interest. Our history forced us to, Mina replied. Humans have faced countless diseases and environmental changes. Those who survived passed on beneficial mutations. We evolved quickly because we had to. Miru watched Dr. Park with growing fascination. Humans lived such short lives, rarely more than 100 years, yet they accomplished so much in that time. They moved with an urgency the long-lived. Tejo had forgotten. Not all humans welcomed the aliens. News reports showed protests in major cities. Some religious groups claimed the end of the world had come. Military forces remained on high alert. They're afraid of us, Miru said to Dr. Park one evening as they worked late in the laboratory. She nodded. Fear is a natural human response to the unknown. But so is curiosity. She smiled at him. And hope. 1 month after the landing, a breakthrough came. Dr. Park's team had identified similarities between Tejo genetic material and certain resilient human genes. Tests in the laboratory showed promising results. The news spread quickly among both species. For the first time in decades, the Tejo felt hope. But challenges remained. The human governments demanded technological exchanges in return for their help. Some Tejo, including Councillor Tamin, who had arrived with a second ship, argued against sharing advanced knowledge with primitive beings. As tensions grew, Miru found himself becoming friends with Dr. Park. They worked together each day, learning from each other. She taught him about human determination and creativity. He showed her the wonders of Tejo science. Your people have achieved so much, Mina said one day as they watched the sunset, Miru's first sunset on Earth. We've had 50,000 years to develop our civilization, he replied. And yet you came to us for help, she said thoughtfully. Maybe time isn't the only factor in progress. Miru nodded slowly. Perhaps what the Tejo need most from humans isn't your genetic material, but your perspective, your ability to see possibilities where we see only problems. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, both knew that the real work was just beginning. The joint human Tejo research facility sprawled across the New Mexico desert. What had started as a temporary base now resembled a small city, with laboratories, living quarters, and meeting spaces where the two species worked together. 3 months had passed since first contact, and the race to save the Tejo had begun. In earnest, Dr. Mina Park stared at the screen showing the latest test results. Beside her, Miru leaned forward, his blue skin reflecting the glow of the monitors. It's working, Mina whispered, almost afraid to believe it. The human stem cells are bonding with the Tejo genetic material. Miru studied the data, his large eyes widening. The repair sequence is holding. This is the longest stability we've achieved. Around them, a team of human and Tejo scientists gathered to see the results. Chief Scientist Dury pushed through the crowd, his aged face showing more emotion than most humans had ever seen from the normally reserved Tejo. How long has the sample been stable? He asked. 17 hours, Mina replied. That's 4 times. Longer than our previous attempt. The room erupted in excited conversation. After dozens of failed experiments, this small success felt enormous. Mina stepped away from the group, suddenly exhausted. She had barely slept in weeks. Outside the lab, the desert night was cool and quiet. Mina looked up at the stars, wondering which one was the Tejo homeworld. She felt a presence beside her and turned to see Elder Hana approaching slowly. You should rest, the ancient Tejo said gently. Even humans need sleep. Mina smiled. I'll rest when we solve this. Your dedication is remarkable, Hana observed. All of you work as if you were saving your own species, not ours. Maybe we are, Mina replied. Working with the Tejo has already taught us so much about genetics. What we learn might someday save humanity from similar problems. Inside the main conference room, tensions were rising. Representatives from Earth's governments had arrived for their weekly update, and they were growing impatient. We've provided resources, facilities, and our best scientists, said General Harris of the United States. What are the Tejo offering in return? Director Garam stood tall before the human delegation. We have shared knowledge of our star drive technology and medical advances. Limited knowledge countered the Chinese representative. "Your most advanced technologies remain secret." Councillor Taemin, who had opposed the Earth mission from the beginning, spoke up. "And they should remain so. Humans are not ready for such power." The room grew tense. After weeks of cooperation, old suspicions were resurfacing, both sides worried about giving too much and receiving too little. Later that night, Miru found Mina in the lab still working despite her exhaustion. "The council meeting did not go well," he told her. Mina sighed. "Humans fear what we don't understand, and some of us want everything all at once." "The Taiju are no different," Miru admitted. "Councillor Taemin speaks of humans as if you were children. He doesn't see what I see." "And what do you see?" Mina asked. "A young species with remarkable adaptability. You don't live long enough to become set in your ways. You must innovate quickly or perish." Their conversation was interrupted as Dr. Tae-ho Kim burst into the lab, excitement clear on his face. "Mina, the new approach, combining the treatments, it worked in the simulation." They rushed to his workstation, where a complex model showed Taizhou cells accepting the modified human genes without rejection. "The key was not trying to fix the Taizhou DNA directly," Tai-ho explained. "Instead, we're teaching their cells how to repair themselves, using modified human repair mechanisms." Word spread quickly. The next morning, the main laboratory was filled with both species as Mina presented the new approach. "Human DNA includes mechanisms that allow for adaptation to environmental challenges," she explained. "We believe we can transfer these mechanisms to Taizhou genetics without changing who you are." Elder Hana stepped forward. "Will this save our children?" "If it works," Mina replied honestly. "Future generations of Taizhou will carry these repair mechanisms naturally. They will adapt as humans do, while remaining Taizhou." Not everyone welcomed the news. Councillor Taemin stood up angrily. "You propose to make us part human? To contaminate our pure genetic line that has remained unchanged for 50,000 years? I propose to save your species," Mina responded firmly. "The very stability you're proud of has become your weakness." The debate raged for days. Some Taizhou feared losing their identity. Others saw no alternative. The humans also argued among themselves, some wanting more Taizhou technology in exchange for the treatment. Through it all, Miru and Mina continued their work. In the quiet hours of the early morning, they finally prepared the first full treatment for testing. "Who will be the first subject?" Miru asked. Before Mina could answer, Elder Hana entered the lab. "I will," she said simply. "Elder Hana, the risks," Miru began. "I have lived over 1,000 years," she interrupted. "I have seen the rise and fall of Taizhou civilizations. If this fails, I have little to lose. If it succeeds, our people have everything to gain." Mina looked at the ancient Taizhou with new respect. "We'll begin tomorrow." That night, as the facility grew quiet, hope spread through both human and Taizhou quarters. Tomorrow would bring either a new beginning or another failure. Either way, two species that had evolved light years apart were now bound together by a common purpose. The treatment room was silent, except for the soft hum of medical equipment. Elder Hana lay on the examination table, her blue skin pale under the bright lights. Around her, human and Taizhou medical staff moved with quiet efficiency, preparing for the first full genetic treatment. Mina checked the formula one last time. "Are you certain you want to proceed?" she asked Hana. "The risks are significant." The ancient Taizhou smiled faintly. "In my 1,000 years, I have never feared the unknown. Begin." Miru stood beside Mina, monitoring Hana's vital signs as the treatment began. The modified human stem cells, combined with Taizhou genetic material, flowed into Hana's bloodstream. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the alarms began to sound. "Her cellular structure is destabilizing," Miru reported, his voice tight with concern. "Immune response is too strong." Hana's body began to shake. The medical team rushed to stabilize her as her systems started to fail. "We need to stop the treatment," one of the human doctors urged. "No," Hana whispered, her voice barely audible. "Continue. This is our only hope." For 6 hours, they fought to keep her alive as the treatment ran its course. When it was finally complete, Hana fell into a deep, coma-like state. Her vital signs were weak, but stable. Word of the crisis spread quickly through the facility. Councillor Taemin used the opportunity to speak against the entire project. "See what human medicine has done to our eldest," he proclaimed to the gathered Taejo. "They nearly killed her with their primitive methods." Director Garam tried to maintain order. "We knew there would be risks." Elder Hana understood this. The treatment was showing signs of working, Miru argued. Her cells were beginning to accept the repair mechanisms before her immune system overreacted. But doubt had been planted. Several Taejo scientists requested reassignment back to their ships. Some humans also began to question whether the project was too dangerous to continue. 3 days later, with Hana still unconscious, Mina found herself facing a review board of both human and Taejo leaders. "Your approach nearly killed Elder Hana," General Harris stated. "How can you justify continuing?" "The problem wasn't with the treatment itself," Mina explained. "It was the delivery method. We've already developed a modified approach that should minimize the immune response." "Should?" Taemin scoffed. "You experiment with lives based on should?" The meeting ended without resolution. The project was placed on hold pending Hana's recovery. If she died, the alliance might collapse entirely. That night, Miru found Mina in the lab reviewing data from the failed treatment. "You should rest," he told her, echoing Hana's words from days earlier. "I can't," she replied, not looking up from her work. "Not while Hana is fighting for her life because of my mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," Miru said firmly. "It was a necessary step. No great advancement comes without risk." Mina finally looked at him. "Your people might go extinct because I was overconfident." "My people were already going extinct," he reminded her. "You gave us hope." In the medical ward, Elder Hana's condition remained unchanged. Duri took shifts sitting with her, speaking softly about their homeworld and the future they were fighting for. 2 weeks after the failed treatment, with tensions growing between humans and Taiho, Mina made a decision. She approached Director Garam with a proposal. "I want to test the modified treatment on myself," she said. Garam looked shocked. "That's too dangerous. The treatment was designed for Taijo physiology." "A small dose won't harm me," Mina argued. "And if it works as expected, it will prove the delivery method is safe." Before Garam could respond, an urgent message came from the medical ward. Hana was awake. They rushed to her side. The ancient Taijo looked weak, but her eyes were clear and alert. "The pain is gone," she whispered, looking at her hands in wonder. "For centuries, I have felt the ache of cellular degradation. Now it is silent." The medical team ran tests immediately. The results left them stunned. Hana's cells showed signs of repair. The treatment had worked after all, but so slowly they hadn't recognized the progress. Hope returned to the facility. Work resumed with new energy. Mina's modified delivery method was tested and refined. 3 more Taijo volunteers received treatments, with far less severe reactions than Hana had experienced. But not everyone was convinced. Councillor Taemin and his followers continued to resist, arguing that the treatment would make the Taijo dependent on humans forever. "Better to die as pure Taijo than live as half-humans," he declared. The argument came to a head when Taemin attempted to cut communications with Earth and recall all Taijo to their ships. Director Garam was forced to confine him to quarters. "Our species stands at a crossroads," she told the assembled Taijo. "We can cling to our past and face extinction, or embrace change and survive." That evening, as the first stars appeared over the desert, Mina and Miru stood outside watching the sky together. "Do you think it will really work?" Miru asked quietly. "It's already working," Mina replied. "Not just the treatment, but this." She gestured to the facility around them. Humans and Taijo working together, learning from each other. That may be the real solution to both our futures. Inside the medical ward, Elder Hana sat up in bed for the first time. She felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries: renewal. And with it came a new understanding. The Taijo had not called humans for help. They had called them for something far more important: change. 1 year after the Taiho first arrived on Earth, the New Mexico facility had grown into a small city. At its center stood a new building, unlike the others. Inside this special structure, behind protective glass walls, 6 Taijo children played under careful observation. Mina pressed her hand against the glass, watching them with wonder. These were the first children born to treated parents. They showed no signs of the genetic degradation that had threatened to end the Taijo species. "They are beautiful," she said softly. Beside her, Miru nodded, his eyes fixed on the children. "And completely healthy. Their cellular structure is stable, with the human repair mechanisms fully integrated." The door opened behind them, and Elder Hana entered slowly. Though still weakened from her treatment, she moved with purpose. The ancient Taijo had become a symbol of hope for her people. "The council has made its decision," Hana announced. "The treatment will be offered to all Taijo. Ships are already being prepared to bring the first groups to Earth." Mina felt a wave of relief wash over her. After months of testing and refinement, the treatment was ready for wide distribution. The Taijo would survive. "And Councillor Taemin?" Miru asked, referring to their strongest opponent. "He has accepted." "The Council's decision," Hana replied, though he still refuses the treatment himself. Later that day, Director Garam called a meeting of both human and Taijo leaders. Representatives from Earth's major nations gathered in the conference room, along with the Taijo High Council members who had traveled to Earth. "Today marks a turning point for both our species," Garam began. "What started as a desperate plea for help has become something more meaningful, a true alliance." General Harris, who had once been suspicious of the Taijo intentions, stood to address the room. "The technology exchanges have already advanced human medicine by decades. The star drive specifications alone will change life on Earth forever." Hi. Elder Jun, who had arrived from the Taijo homeworld only weeks before, stepped forward. His ancient eyes took in the gathered humans with curiosity. "For 50,000 years the Taijo explored the stars," he said. "Yet in all that time we never found a species like humans. You are young, chaotic, and unpredictable, and now we understand those qualities are your greatest strength." Plans were made for the future. Treatment centers would be established on Earth and eventually on the Taiho homeworld. Cultural exchanges would begin, with human scholars traveling to study Taiho history and Taiho scientists coming to learn human adaptability. That evening, a celebration was held under the desert stars. Humans and Taiho mingled, no longer separated, by fear or mistrust. Music from both worlds played as food and drink were shared. Mina found herself standing at the edge of the gathering, suddenly overwhelmed by all they had accomplished. A year ago, she had been a geneticist with no knowledge that aliens existed. Now she had helped save an entire species. "You seem far away," said a familiar voice. She turned to find Miru beside her. "Just thinking about how much has changed," she replied. "For both our peoples," he agreed. "The Taijo lived so long we stopped changing. We thought stability was strength, but it nearly destroyed us." In the center of the celebration, Elder Hana had gathered the 6 Taijo children. They sat in a circle as she taught them an ancient Taijo game, their small blue hands moving in patterns that had been played for thousands of years. "They will live very different lives than any Taijo before them," Miru observed. "They carry part of humanity within them now." "Just as we carry part of the Taijo," Mina said, "the knowledge you've shared has changed us too." 3 months later, Mina stood on the landing pad watching as Miru prepared to board the ship that would take him home. Over 200 Taijo had been successfully treated, and now a group was returning to their homeworld to begin treating others. "Will you visit?" Miru asked. "Our world has many wonders you might enjoy." "I'd like that," Mina replied. "Though I hear your years are much longer than ours. We have much to learn from your shorter lives," he said. "You accomplish so much in so little time because you must." The Taijo had forgotten the value of urgency. Before boarding, Miru handed Mina a small crystal device. "This contains the coordinates of all Taijo colonies. We've never shared these with any other species." "Thank you for trusting us," she said. "It's more than trust," he explained. "It's invitation. The stars are filled with wonders and dangers. Better to face them together than alone." On the Taijo homeworld, a monument was built to commemorate what many now called the renewal. It depicted the double helix of DNA, with Taijo and human genetic patterns intertwined. High Elder June spoke at its unveiling, addressing thousands of gathered Taizhou citizens. We were an ancient civilization when humans were still learning to make fire. We had mapped the stars while they still gazed at them in wonder. Yet when faced with extinction, it was their unique perspective we needed. Through this alliance, both our peoples have been reborn. As Miru's ship left Earth's atmosphere, he looked back at the blue planet that had saved his species. Somewhere down there, Mina was probably already back in her lab, using Taizhou knowledge to solve human problems. The universe, he realized, was far more wonderful than the Taizhou had imagined in all their long history, and their journey was just beginning.